Hello everyone, in today's video we're going to be taking a look at how to make a scenario difficult for players. Now you probably played 1,000,001 scenarios and you've been frustrated by the intense complexity that exists. There's a lot of different ways to make a scenario difficult. One thing you could do of course is make it so there's a lot of enemies. Another thing you could do is you could randomize the position of the enemies. Other things you could do of course is you could create a imbalance. For example, I have two F-16s and they have 30 Sukhoi 27s. How are we going to kind of make that one work? But what we're going to see today is just a way to kind of frustrate the player in little ways that can also force them to go, ah! And we'll go ahead and do that. So let's take a look at our scenario. So we're in here in Colombia, in Maracaibo, and what we have here is a wide variety of different structures. I'm kind of call this downtown. Of course, if I'm thinking Maracaibo, I'm always thinking about this beautiful bridge that goes right across and kind of acts as the entrance to the Lago de Maracaibo, which is due south of that, which is super cool. So let's take a look at what we're working with here. One of the first things you can do as a player, by the way, or as a designer, is you can come in here and make sure that they don't have good stuff to work with. So I have, wow, that's 36 harm missiles. That's a lot. Coming over here, of course, I have a bunch of GBU-10s. That's pretty nasty. A couple Hawkeyes, typical. And of course, I have, this wonderful offensive electronic countermeasures. On top of that, of course, I have 36 Tomahawk missiles. That's actually closer to 72 Tomahawk missiles. So when you do the math real quick, you realize that's enough firepower to end the scenario instantaneously. So we're all sitting there going, well, how on earth are you supposed to make this difficult? Well, let's experiment a little bit. The first thing, of course, if I really, really want to frustrate the players right away, is we could create something that they didn't expect. So we'll go ahead and start with that. So we have a carrier battle group here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get a little sneaky. I'm going to come about, we'll call it 10 nautical miles away or something like that. Let's go get myself a submarine. Let's go ahead and now see here. What could be a fun submarine? All right, Colombia, what do you have for us today? Boop. Unfortunately, we have 3 to pick from. We have this one that which we don't technically have yet. We have the Type 209, which is actually a great sub. We also have this Cosmos, kind of a tiny one. So I'm actually just going to grab this one real quickly right here. I'm going to go ahead and point him in this direction. Now, one of the cool things is I know where this crew is going because I designed the scenario. So the first thing we'll do is we'll give these guys a real fun surprise. So I'll go ahead and set him to be shallow depth here. I'll go ahead and set him to stop. And I'll go ahead and have him kind of creep. Well, let's actually do like 2 knots or something like that. Nice and slow. Again, like I said, these little things that the players don't expect are fantastic ways of annoying the heck out of the players. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to grab him. I'll grab his WRA here. And then what I'm going to do is he's got these SST-4s, which are not terribly good weapons. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use all weapons against. Now you're going, why on earth would you do that? Let me show you why. I'm not going to use these weapons against ships. You're like, are you kidding me? Why would you not do that? That makes no sense. Why? What? Here's why. I'm going to tell him to only attack carriers, and I'm only going to order him to attack every round that he has on board with those particular carriers. So in this case, what I've done is I've actually taken this guy, said, don't shoot your torpedoes, unless, of course, it happens to be an aircraft carrier. You can already see exactly how frustrating this is going to be. The other thing we want to do, too, is we want to set these guys up for the ambush shot here. So he's going to be down to shallow depth. He's basically going to be making no noise. He's going to be making enough noise, basically, to get into position here to be able to dump his entire rack on him. So one thing we need to think about, too, is, of course, when they take their shot, weapon release authorization, we need to think about the automatic firing range. A carrier, this is a very, very short-range weapon. So basically, we're going to dump this right on them when they get within that magical range. We, of course, can put a self-defense on here, but good players will do that. So that's the first thing we're going to do. Nothing like disrupting carrier operations when you least expect it. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to set up the surface-to-air missile system here in Maracaibo. And we have to think about the players for a second here. Because what most players will do is, again, depending on the player, depending on how many times you've watched my videos here, you would probably say, Maracaibo, there's probably going to be some big nasty SAM sites down here. So what I'd probably do is fire a bunch of Tomahawk missiles. I'll make them go through the mountains here. Them kind of come around. Looks like we have some low mountains here. So I'll probably have my guys ingress this way. And we'll basically concentrate on doing this. Anybody who's dumb enough to come down the front here deserves to get whacked, kind of a thing like that. That's a good tactical doctrine. It makes a lot of sense. And some scenario designers, what they'll actually do is come in here and they'll block off this a little nice nation directly to the west here as a way to stop the players from basically chewing down here. But, if they want to be sneaky, they can be sneaky. Let's do that. However, let's take advantage of the smart players' sneakiness a little bit here. The first thing we have to do is convince them that we're using a conventional defense. So let's do that first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab myself a good old-fashioned Patriot missile battery, because why not make things interesting for us? Let's get ourselves a Patriot. So it helps if you don't click Colombia, because Colombia does not have Patriots. Of course, you're like, why are you using a Patriot? I'm using a Patriot because they're cool. There we go. Netherlands, that looks good. Germany, Frig, that looks pretty good too. The Pack 2, I really wanted the Pack 3 we can't get yet. Only Poland's got the Pack 3 here, so I'm not going to get that one. So let's go down to 1987, 2006, United States Army 97. That sounds good. I really wanted the Gem Plus, though. The Errant, a Ghost Eye. Ooh, that's a fancy one. Let's see here. United States Army. There we go. Bingo. So we have ourselves a Patriot missile battery. These are fantastic weapons. What we're actually going to do here is we're going to come in here and we're going to say set as auto detectable. So what we're doing is we're forcing them to waste missiles on my lovely Patriot missile battery here. This is a sacrificial base missile battery. So I'm actually going to go up to weapons here and I'm going to strip all of the stuff off of it. You're like, why would you do this? Why? The reason I'm doing this is because the player's going to know where this Patriot missile battery is. So they're either going to whack it with missiles, which is pretty typical. Everybody knows that the Patriot missile battery is going to be pointed in the direction of the threat. Whoops, helps if we are in the correct side here. Set unit side, let's go back to red team here and switch back over there. The other thing we're going to know is the fact that because there's a Patriot there, it's a pretty effective weapons platform. It's going to be in the direction of the threat. So we're basically providing the user, if you want to think about it kind of another way, with a free shot on the intention of tricking the user into wasting their free shot. So I'm going to go ahead and take this and park it there. And you can see that now we've created a little bubble of awareness in that direction. And we're probably going to get it blown up, which is exactly the intention. So how do you solve the problem of getting this guy blown up? Remember, he's acting as a decoy for us. I'm actually going to move him onto this mountain. So what we're going to do is convince the American player that we are indeed having a real system here. So what I'm actually going to do is come down here. And I'm going to go ahead and park a second Patriot missile battery in place here. So I'm going to go ahead and grab another one. The only difference is I'll just go ahead and copy the one we already have here. See, boop, I'm going to put that one right there. I'm going to go ahead and make sure its orientation makes sense. I think the orientation in this one was pretty much far over to the side. So go ahead and grab it. I'm going to flip on the radar just for a second here. Again, we're just doing this so we can kind of establish roughly where the threat's going to come from. And we know, of course, they're going to try to fire the Tomahawk missiles kind of around the corner so that they can avoid the detection zone here. But remember, our detection zone, this Patriot missile battery isn't going to be detected. So what we really want to do is design it so it's facing the direction where the enemy is likely to come through. Again, we're using a little bit of metagaming here. But the cool advantage is if I shoot a Tomahawk missile around this corner, this Patriot missile will light up without warning our American friends that we've gone ahead and fired a Patriot missile. All they'll see is the missile being shot down, convincing them that this is actually the real battery, even though the fake battery is indeed not even visible. So I'm going to go ahead and shut that one down. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make it hard for the player by creating weird weather. So I'm going to come in here. Right now, the weather's pretty good. So what I want them to do is fly into a hail of infrared missiles. So I'm going to go ahead and take the sky. I'm going to go ahead and make it kind of nasty. That's moderate middle clouds, about 7,000 feet. That's perfect. I'll make it just a tiny bit windy, and we'll leave, it's Colombia, so we're going to check up the temperature a little tiny bit there. Go ahead and save my scenario so far. Everything's coming together. So the next thing we want to do is we want to surprise the player who's going to attempt to go directly through these mountain ranges over here. There's going to be two likely choices. Like I said, if we do a no navigation zone, most of them will probably try to use this mountain as coverage. Of course, if we do the math real quick, that's 42 miles where you're going to be seen. If we come from the other direction, our best mountain's probably about here. It's about 35 nautical miles. So really smart players are probably going to come down from this direction. So we want to go and annoy them too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here. I'll click right here. I'll go ahead and get myself another Patriot missile battery because I'm so mean. I'll go ahead and copy that one. I'll park it right here. And what we're going to do with this one is we're going to face it that way. So we're basically acting as a surprise for the person who's not expecting it. So we're going to go ahead and take this one too. And we're going to make these guys aces. We're also going to take the battery itself. I'll go ahead and grab him real quick. Let's go ahead and set a sensor. I need to flip his sensor on for just a second here so I can, oh, perfect. So he's going to be parked there. And the other thing I'm going to do with him too, and this is really, really important, is I'm going to order all of my launchers not to waste ammo on something that you can't hit. So I'm going to go ahead and select no escape zone here for all of these, which is going to make it a little bit better. You can actually do less than no escape zone, especially when you're dealing with the more nasty stuff here. So let's see, no escape zone. We'll do no escape zone. If you want to shoot at like a weapon or something like that, they can go nuts with that, but I'm not so worried about those things. All right, file save. I'm so mean. So this guy's basically going to act as a surprise to everybody who comes in here. Now, we need to help him out a little bit. So this is one of the fun strategies that I love doing. So if you go to building real quick and you actually scroll down here, there's a bunch of fun point defense systems that you could put in here. But you can grab a building with an observer and actually just stick him on the top of the hill here. Now, he's undetectable because it will not be, let me see here, is he detectable? Now he's not detectable. So what I like to do is I like to go to the sensors window, and I do a couple little things here. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to give him a pair of night vision goggles. Now, the reason you do this is it's going to make it nice and complicated for the person who's going to be flying over us, because we're going to see them. The other thing you can do too is you can do forward-looking infrared. And what I've done is I've basically created a little system where I can actually identify. So you have depreciated, and we have all the different flares and stuff like that. It's okay that it's depreciated. It still works. So we can go ahead and do surveillance. Boop. And now what I've done is I've created the world's smartest little platform here. Now, if you're nervous, you can actually come up to here and hit the line of sight tool real fast and go ahead and say same as observer. And look at the field of view I have here. I can see all the way into Maracaibo over there, which is fantastic. Actually, we probably want to do visual right here. Perfect. So that means right now we're going to have an array of these, basically little forward observers. I press Shift-C, by the way. If you don't press Shift-C, C as in Charlie, you're, of course, going to have the problem where my observers here are going to be not including all my fancy sensors that we're going to get here. So I'm going to go ahead and set those guys up. I'll go ahead and set a pair of coast watchers up here too. Whoops, apparently I tried to put him in the ocean, which is always amusing to do. Grab him real quick, do one of those things. Again, I'm just pretty standard stuff here, but it works very, 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 very well to annoy the heck out of players. And again, they're probably going to come through this. I almost can predict your average player is going to probably come through here. So let's go ahead and grab that one and do one of those. And, you know, just for science here, let's go ahead and grab and park another one up on the coast here. So in case they really want to do something silly, we can come here like that. And we'll go ahead and grab this and click right here. We're going to right click and set that one to not auto detectable. And, you know, most players, like, again, if this is a no navigation zone, which technically we don't own this part of the country anyway, we're not supposed to be there ourselves, too bad. We can go ahead and program that as well. So we'll come down here and we'll go ahead and put them right on the border. It's just a little border. Again, these are little observation posts. They're nothing special. Now, some players are going to be really crafty and they're going to come up the lake here, which makes a lot of sense because you can fly so low on this lake, which means when we do our strike, we can come there and come back around here. Unfortunately, that's actually fairly challenging for us to compensate for, even though it seems like the last place you'd want to go ahead. What do you mean it's underwater? It says it was an elevation of 3 feet. That's more than enough. So one of the disadvantages of this, of course, is ironically the best strategy is to come up through here because none of my stuff is expecting them to come out of here. But don't worry, we have a surprise downtown for those fools. So let's also go ahead and pop an observation post down here just in case the players are that creative. All right, so now we have a bunch of visual observation posts. We're ready to go. So now we're going to go ahead and establish kind of a radar to kind of give us a general hint. Keep in mind this radar is going to be the victim of a Tomahawk cruise missile very, very shortly. So what I like to do is use the exact same strategy. I create the fake radar and then I create the real radar, and it confuses the crap out of players. So I'm gonna come over here. I'll grab myself my standard radar, TPS 43. TPS 43E, that's the one I like to use, even though it's old, it works. So I'm going to take one of these. I'm going to go ahead and take that radar. I'm going to go ahead and flip it on. Boop, just like that. Now, this is a good time, of course, to set intermittent emissions here. That's just a really, really solid strategy. So I'm going to come up to MCON window here. Again, we're making things challenging for this guy. We'll assume we are in yellow right now. This particular guy under the yellow is not continuous. Run for 10 seconds. 10, and I always like F5. That works perfectly fine. So what that's going to do is it's going to go ahead and make him kind of flick his radar on and off, which is fantastic because it confuses the heck out of players. And one thing we're going to do to make this a little challenging is we're going to make sure he's not auto-detectable. So basically, we think we've got him. Now, here's where you can be a real jerkface. So what you do is you take this radar, you clone it, and then you put it 2 feet away. Now, the reason you put it 2 feet away is what happens is the player will try to go ahead and fire at this thinking it's the only radar, not realizing there's actually 2 radars there. So they end up undershooting or overshooting the amount of weapons that they need to fire, which wastes a lot of time. The other thing, too, because naturally most players are probably going to try to target that for the purposes of, destroying it. So, you kind of blind them, kind of a thing like that, is to go ahead and do something like that. We'll go ahead and give them a different intermission here. We'll do 5, 8, random variation is 3, just to make it a little bit trickier there. That's going to be so fun. So this is a great way to annoy the players as well. Let's go ahead and file save real quick here. And now we need to deal with the defense of Maracaibo personally. Right now, as you know, we have this bit of a surprise here, which we're not supposed to have because it's not even our country. That's okay. We can move it down if we want it to be more fair, but let's just assume we put them in the mountains there. We have this great Patriot missile surprise for everybody who's going to be passing through in that direction. My next Patriot missile surprise is actually going to come right in here. Again, Patriot missiles are difficult to work with because they can't shoot in all directions like an S-300, but that's okay because, like I said, we're about here to be annoying. We're not about here to be devastating. So I'm going to go ahead and grab myself a Hawk next, which are super duper fun to play with, especially the later versions of them. There we go. And grab one of these. And of course, I'm going to leave him off. If I turned him on, of course, he would basically fire at the first thing he could try to fire at, and basically I get duped into getting whacked. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to set these to no escape zones. I don't expect him to get that many victories. My goal here is to cause him to scare the crap out of whoever he shoots at here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select an extremely difficult target. I know that seems like a waste of ammunition, but I'm not going to be able to terrify the player enough unless I can trick the player into trying to engage this with more effort than it needs to be engaged with. Again, a smart player will basically back out of the way and then come back around and try to drop a bunch of tomahawks on it, which is a lot of ammunition wasted, by the way. But if we do any other combination of this, we're just going to get whacked. So the other thing we want to do, too, is we want to visualize that player trying to sneak in and take the direct shot on Maracaibo here. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take, I like to call this the cheap shot here. So we're going to see he's going to come down here. He's probably going to use this thing right here, right past my observer. So right in that valley right there, we're going to go ahead and put a chaparral. I always never pronounce that correctly. It's a type of terrain, is my understanding. I'm just going to park it right there. Because what will happen is when they try to come through this little valley to minimize the damage from my soon-to-be other Patriot missile launcher systems, we're going to make sure that they have to own it and they have to suffer. So the next thing we're going to do, too, is we're going to put one of those chaparrals. We're going to pop it right here as well. The reason why is because if they want to just walk up and knock on the radar site, which is one of my favorite things to do as a strategy, they're not going to expect to suddenly get a bunch of Sidewinders launched at them. And again, I don't expect to be able to shoot on every plane here. That's not my goal. My goal is to make it difficult for the player and make it expensive for the player. So the other thing, too, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here. I'm going to go ahead and add one of those here. Whoop. Helps if you actually click the right button when you do that. Let's go ahead and grab one of these. I'm going to go ahead and toss them right here, too. Again, the purpose of this is not to be able to, it's a gotcha. It's to deny the player that cheap shot once they have identified it to come around the back of the Patriot and be like, ding dong, with a bunch of cluster bombs. It's not going to work because they're going to get surprised by a bunch of Sidewinders and they're going to get flinged up at them. Okay, so let's head into Maracaibo proper now. I'll go ahead and save real quick. Everything is looking great. So obviously their concentration is here. And as you know, the classic expression, the best place, the best defense is good offense. We don't have a choice. We can't do that here. Obviously, if we had a bunch of anti-ship missiles, we could scare the crap out of the players. But we're not going to do that. We're just not. We have a submarine. I've already got that surprise built in. Nobody needs to know. So what we're going to do now is we're going to come down to Maracaibo, and we're basically going to design this to be Fortress Maracaibo. So there's really two different philosophies the players are going to use. Unfortunately, they have GPUs, which means they need visuals. To have visuals on the flip side, if you go to weather real quick, you realize that my weather is at a 7,000-foot ceiling. That means that they have to drop below 7,000 feet to use their GPUs, which means to hit anything, they need to come within the critical range of my death-making machines, which are also known as my little chaparrals, which is exactly what I was using this whole time. So what I'm going to do is grab one of my observation posts. I'm going to come here to Maracaibo. I assume he's sitting on the top of the bridge or something like that. Come over to here, make sure he is detectable. I'll press File, Save. Looks pretty good right now. I'm loving the way this is set up. And now we're going to make this a death trap for anybody who wants to fly less than 7,000 feet. So I'm going to come right downtown here. We'll make this interesting. Let's go ahead and get the Avenger. I love the Avenger because it's just so much fun to play with. So we have one of these. As you can see, the Avenger, it doesn't have the world's greatest range here. So one of the things I'll do is I'll actually come here. I'll control right click, and I'll go ahead and hit circle, and I'll go ahead and just draw. And that did not work at all. Let's do it from the center this time when I do that. Click and drag. Let go. So what that does is that creates a lovely little ring of area points there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shut off the stamen terrain here so I can very clearly see where my ring of death has to be. Like I said, it's all about annoying the player here. So go ahead and... That looks pretty good. Let's see, I need to make sure we don't actually put them in the ocean here, which is pretty amusing, and I'll show you how to deal with that in a second. So put him here, and we'll go ahead and put him here. And obviously in the middle, this is when we're going to set up our Patriot batteries. So I'm going to go ahead and grab one of these buildings here. One of the fun things to do is to put something that seems really innocuous just to confuse the heck out of the player. Grab here, type in ATC, just a generic ATC radar, just to confuse the heck out of them. I don't think they call it that. I think it's air traffic. There it is. I'm so mean. Let's go ahead and turn the radars on right there. So now we have a generic little radar downtown kind of a thing. And of course, now we're going to place our regular folks as well. So I'm going to go ahead and press the insert key and press that real quick. We'll go ahead and toss in our last couple batteries. We'll go ahead and talk in a couple hawks. And again, we don't need to worry so much about not being able to see the Americans coming because we will be able to see the Americans coming. So I'm not stressed about that. All right, let's see. United States Marine Corps. That sounds pretty good. I don't know why we have one of these. We're going to go ahead and grab these guys. We're going to jack their proficiency up to ace to make things a little extra fun for us. And I'm also going to go ahead and press Control-Shift F9 one more time. WRA. We'll set to my hawk real quickly. Remember, no escape zone for these guys. This one is exactly the same. We want to make them earn this shot here. The fun thing with these weapons is they're pretty short range to begin with, so I'm not really expecting them to be like ferociously awesomely useful or anything like that, but like I said, you'd be very, very, very surprised as far as how effective that can be. So let's go ahead. So this guy's in position. He's looking in all his different directions right here. Again, I'm using him at basically minimum range here because I don't want to waste it. And then like I said, you always have to have that one little surprise that nobody's expecting kind of at the end. So I'll type in Patriot real quick. Let's go ahead and, why not? I didn't want to make this easy. I wanted to make the player earn this one. So let's grab my little Patriot here. We're going to go ahead and face my Patriot. We'll turn on his radar just temporarily. Radars, turn him on. Perfect. So I'm going to have him kind of cover that approach corridor. And then I'm going to have another one with his radar shut off in the obvious direction. So that way the player thinks he's cracked my secret, but the reality is he hasn't. So that's what makes these like things so much fun. Again, you'd be dumb to come from that direction, so shame on you if you came in that direction. So using the same strategy we used before, I'm just going to grab this guy real quick. I'm going to spin him around so that we have nice even coverage in both directions. I'm also going to shut his radar off here because I don't want to give him away. This one I'm okay with giving away, but on this one I'm not okay with giving away. So now we have our defensive ring here. We've placed a bunch of people strategically. We've designed plenty of little kind of surprises here and there. One thing that's really, really fun is, like I said, a smart player will try to come up the lake, which seems to be like the last place you'd want to come because you've got all this lovely lake. But it's okay because I prepared a surprise for the person who decides to come up the lake as well. Right inside here, I have a naval dock. And of course, I have the entire Navy. No, it's not the entire. I take it back. A good chunk of the Colombian Navy here, including this little guy right here, which is actually a lot of fun. Go ahead and click on this one, which is this lovely little kind of a frigate piece here, which is neat. We also have these two patrol craft, and mounted on these lovely patrol craft, we've got some cannons and things like that. And we also have this little guy right here. This is the Almirante Padilla, which is a little Corvette little piece here. Nothing too excessive as far as weapons goes. We have a couple Mistrals, which again are pretty short-ranged weapons, so we're not going to be able to really surprise anyone with that directly. But the reality is the Americans are probably not expecting to bump into a boat, as weird as that sounds. So let's give them a fun little surprise as far as that goes too. So we'll go to surface ship. We'll go ahead and grab ourselves something appropriate. Let's go to Colombia again. Colombia, sounds good. We have all these other Type 15s. Let's see, is this the one I want to use? Well, let's see. I just want to make sure his Mistral's good enough. Boop. So now what we have is we have a boat that is literally sitting there, just patiently waiting for somebody foolish enough to try to come directly up here. And obviously, I don't expect that boat to be able to shoot everything down. So what I will do is I'll go ahead and imagine the players. They see it, they take a right turn, they immediately dive to this side of things. So let's go ahead and leave a couple surprises on this side of things as well. Now you're saying, okay, so you've done a lot of IR missiles here. You've done a lot of stuff with radar-guided missiles. I haven't done a lot with AAA. So let's go do some AAA. Let's make it interesting, right? Let's go ahead and scroll down. They have the TIP 70, which is actually a really, really nice weapon. So we're going to come in here, and we're going to go ahead and say, let's see what do we want. What do we want? 60s are pretty fun. KS-19s, I love those. I think the new Point Defense Type 4, was this the one I want to use here? Because this could be a fun little surprise here. Let's see here. It's a 30mm cannon, 35mm. Oh, that sounds like fun. Let's grab that real quick. What's the range in this thing? Nothing. That's fine with me. So go ahead and set up a little array of these. And again, a little bit of a surprise for the player who doesn't expect this one. We're going to make these not auto-detectable. Remember, turning something on auto-detectable is a great way to trick the player into acting in a way they shouldn't act. So we'll go ahead and save that one. Go ahead and right-click and save that one. And now we're in great shape. All right, Fortress Columbia. Of course, it turns out I'm on the wrong country here, which is typical of something I would do there. But that's okay. All right, so let's go ahead and switch to the other player real quick here. There we go. Actually, one more thing I want to do is the other players real fast. Let's go back to this one. Control-Shift F9. One thing I do want to do here is for my torpedoes, all surface targets are considered valid targets as far as I'm concerned. Free fire, free fire, free fire, free fire. Optimistic. Delightful. So that way, there's no delay, so to speak, here. So let's go ahead and switch back to the Americans and see how this goes. So we've got a pretty good setup right now. Obviously, we've got this fortress down here that's everything's ready to rock in. We've designed it to be nice and annoying. We've got the Americans, so let's do this conventionally real quick and kind of see what happens here. Let's see, strike strike city. That sounds good to me. We'll do a land strike and we'll just be conventional here. I'm not going to do anything weird. So I'm going to grab all of these guys, toss them down here. These are obviously going to be marked as escorts. I believe the other ones, yeah, these are definitely going to be marked as escorts. And the rest of you are kind of be doing the deed there. All right, mission settings, that's fine. I'm not going to change any of this. Yes, I am. Can't not change it, actually. Let's see here. Flight size, we're going to do flight size of 6 or flight size of 3. Flight size of 3, I think. Yes, flight size of 3. Perfect. WRA, that's perfectly fine. Let's also make sure we're going to use extremely aggressive OECM this entire flight here. You want to make it as fun as possible. OECM, that looks good. Escort, we're going to go flip on your OECM. Again, try to make us as miserable as possible, but again, I'm not going to do anything too excessive here. Then, of course, the last thing we're going to do to test this scenario, I'll go ahead and create 2 reference points. We'll go ahead and create one there. Control F11, and then we'll do support. I think I may have made a mistake. I'll go check in a second, though. So go ahead and press the, let's see, this is support message, support, okie doke. Let's grab those 2 E2s. Go ahead and toss them down here. Of course, the one thing we want to do is actually turn them on. That could be a mistake on my part if I did not. Do not inherit. Perfect. Let's see, this is a land strike. All right, let's try it. So I'm going to press the spacebar key and go ahead and fast forward time here. We're going to go ahead and launch all of our aircraft. Everything's in the way. The jammers have flipped on, which is exactly what I anticipated them to do. They're going to start floating down towards the city. Oh, we picked up a radar site. Oh, looks like a TPS-43 is aware of us. Meanwhile, of course, as you know, we have a surprise. So we're going to go ahead and send everybody flying down there. They're getting into position. We're picking up, looks like a missile site. Notice we know about this missile site. So again, every player in their right mind will pop that with a bunch of missiles. Oh, we picked something else up. What's this? Ah, there's something else down there, but we're not sure what it is. Strange, because it's not emitting anything. Haha. Bam. Well, that's about to get curse-sploded. But wait, watch what happens. Oh no, you killed my decoy. All right, let's continue with our scenario here. I'm so evil. All right, let's go switch to the other team real quick. And as we know, we're completely aware of all of these guys coming towards us here. And our lucky batter, remember how we have a second one that's basically sitting there ready to rock? Notice which direction he's pointed. They'd never see it coming because it's going to come from behind them. All right, we're getting into position here. My strikers, of course, if I was a little more strategic about this, I could design them so that if I was especially manually controlling things, I could kind of get that kind of free shot. But look what's about to happen. All right, we have a good look on that burning Patriot missile battery. We're still not sure what that object on the top of the hill is. Oh, we picked up another object there. Oh, there appear to be 2 radar sites, and they're awfully ambiguous. Uh-oh, we've identified it as a SAM. Oh, he's going to get exploded. Oh, well, those F-18s are going to eat that guy up in about half a second. There they go. Oh, my Patriot got curse splattered. Oh, well, I'll have to adjust his orientation to the right a little bit more to provide a better surprise. Oh, I hate to say it, F-18s, but you basically shot your shot there. So unfortunately, the rest of my strikers are just going to kind of continue along here. Hope you're very proud of yourselves. Here comes the rest of my strikers here. They're coming into position. They're going to have to lose a lot of altitude in order to be able to get underneath that cloud layer. Now, remember the way I designed my little setup here. We're definitely aware of some nastiness. Floating through the clouds, coming through the clouds. Again, this is just doing a straight-up strike here. Hits his IP. He's going to go ahead and turn in. Oh, we got some missiles launched. And they drop without getting engaged. Let's go ahead and take a look at what's going here. So my bombs are on the way. My MPQ there. We have these guys, the GBUs. I don't know how on earth they're being guided. What altitude are you at, sir? 5371. Incredibly, nobody seems to be firing. Let's see if I can find out what happened wrong here. Click on this guy. Why are you not firing at that guy? Oh, Control 1, F1. Why did you not fire? Must detect the target prior to firing. What is his altitude here? That's 934. What's this guy's altitude? That's pretty darn close. I should be able to take that shot. Huh. That's a little strange. And we shoot down half of the GBUs with my Hawk. Oh, here comes the second round of him. He's going to overfly directly on top of him. Not 100% sure why he decided to do that. No escape zone within weapon minimum range. Oh, so we're going to get the cheap shot on the way back. Looks like our Hawk battery is doing exactly what I was hoping the Hawk battery. Oh, we lost one building. That's all right. And we're going to go ahead and now waste some rounds in that. And notice my Hawk battery ends up being the #1 thing that carries all the weight here. Not because it's engaging my missile targets here, but because it's shooting down all the guided weapons that could do the actual damage in my city. So I'm a little disappointed with these guys, not going to lie. I was kind of hoping they'd be able to pop them as they go by. But it just goes to show you that my secret weapon here was the hidden Hawk that actually shot down all the missiles. So that's one of the reasons why it's so important to have defense in depth. So what I have to do now is I have to go find out why these guys are having such a tough time detecting them. You know, if I were to put another missile battery in here, was this kind of create a thing? Must detect the target before doing. Why have you not been able to? Let's do some quick little examination here. Let's call it an experiment. Call this Fleur. Again, this is just a quick little experiment. Now, let's see here. We'll do weapon director. Boop. We'll go right here. That little donk. Let's see if that makes a difference there. More of this is, like I said, for science. Now we should be able to detect him. Is he popping up into the clouds? Because that could be what's going on here. Let's see, he's 8,200 feet. Yeah, he's just slightly outside of my range. Let's go and take a look at the weather again real fast. Maybe what we'll do is, again, this is just for science. Just for science. There we go. Let's unpause that. And let's see if it changes things a little bit. Well, it certainly looks like a decent shot to me. Fire. Ah, so I see what happened there. So it looks to me like one of the problems that I just faced here was the fact that they did a pretty nice job. The only issue there was they kept diving into the actual kind of weapon range here. So unfortunately, every time they passed into the clouds, they were escaping on my wrath here, which is kind of a shame. But at the same time, as those kind of things could happen. But now that I've raised up the cloud ceiling a teeny tiny bit, that would have been interesting. Yeah, we're going to have a lot of F-18s about to get popped here.